So let me stop there, and I welcome your questions.
Stop sharing.
Okay, so you can stop share. Okay, stop share. Unmute her. Okay. Asked to unmute.
I think she's got a see.
Well, maybe the host could just move to them at this point.
The students. Yes, they could. Well, we would need to assign her. What's her name?
Sneha.
Okay.
There, asked to unmute. There you go.
Okay, thank you, Professor. And we're so sorry about the host mishap, but thank you so much for such a detailed account of democratic backsliding in the United States. And it is relevant for so many models of democracy in contemporary times. And now I would like to open the floor for some questions. I think maybe if you could make me the host so I can unmute people who want to ask the questions.
That's a good idea.
Okay, so we're going to do that. We're going to figure out how to do that.
See.
Host tools?
Host tools. There we go. Here it is. Okay. All right. Really no. I think let's just do this here. Okay. Participants. So just looking at request host chat. Just want to suspend. Looking for the more assign host here.
Is it up here?
Self-view.
We can't figure out how to do it here.
Okay. Because
Hostels for participants.
How did we do it in the first place?
maybe if you can click on my video and with the 3 dots and
Yeah, let's see there. Maybe that's it. Stuff video. Make host. Okay, there we go.
There we go.
Change host.
Okay.
Okay.
So I can make unmute Muhammad as well.
Okay, so
I'm going to try to unmute Muhammad.
Okay, well, you're the host now, so that's great.
I think hostship has come to me.
Okay, great. Okay, right.
Sneha, you can continue.
Okay, so Professor, would you prefer if we take like 3 questions at a while or like 1 question?
Whatever you want to do. You
Okay.
manage it. I'll be happy to.
Okay, so Mohammed, can you unmute Anil? I think he was the first one to raise his hand.
And guys, those who want to ask question, please raise your hand and open your video.
Yes.
Anil, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. I have few questions. I want to know, you have given very insights regarding the Republican Party. I want to know what is the status of Democratic Party vis-a-vis the status of Republican Party today. Second point is there a leadership crisis in United States? Considering the kind of presidents we had earlier. And third question, why is it that no woman president has been chosen by American people to this date? Thank you.
Okay, well, I think it's obvious that there's a leadership crisis in the United States. Partly because, as I explained, the second Trump administration is very corruption oriented, which means that the criteria of success for people in that government is loyalty to the personal interests of Trump and his family and associates. And that doesn't lead to necessarily very effective government for everybody else. It doesn't even lead to success in many of the things they try to do. So it's pretty obvious. Now, the Democratic Party is also, in many ways, in a period of difficulty. It is very difficult for one of the two major political parties in the United States whenever it is locked out of all of the branches of the national government. And right now, the Democratic Party does not hold either House of Congress. It is clearly losing cases before the Supreme Court because there's a pro-Republican majority that's pretty frank about its partisanship. And of course, it is being targeted by Donald Trump every chance he gets. On the other hand, over the last year, even though we are not a parliamentary system, we don't have by-elections, we do have special elections when somebody dies or resigns or moves to another office. And Democrats have been winning every one of those elections all over the country, even in conservative areas of the country, by about 13 points compared to how they did in the 2024 presidential election, which was a close election. Donald Trump won it, but he won it barely. So, for people who are disgruntled with what's happening, and in the Trump coalition right now, about a fourth of the people who voted for him are showing real displeasure with what is being delivered once the president is in office. So the Democratic Party is in pretty good shape to win seats in one or both houses of the Congress and many state governments in November of 2026 if the elections are fairly conducted and fairly counted. So now why women do win election in the United States pretty regularly in local government, state government, Senate, House of Representatives, but they have not won the presidency. And I think research shows that there is a share of voters who will not vote for a female commander-in-chief of the military. And so women have a kind of tail that they have to overcome. I do think a woman will be elected president in due course, but I don't think it's going to be right away.
Also, Arka Prabhu, do you have the same question as the question answered before? Like you've typed why women are not elected? Or do you have a separate question? Okay. I guess we'll take two more questions at a time then.
Okay, a second question.
Mohammed, can you unmute? Because I don't have the power. Till then, I can maybe ask my question. So, Professor, in the context of democratic backsliding, we're also seeing a re-emergence of left-wing municipal state-level projects, including places like New York City. And obviously, it's an one-off case, but from an institutional perspective, do you see these efforts as do they have a capacity to counter forces like techno-capitalism or ethno-nationalist mobilization, or are they structurally constrained from the outset? That's the question I had, and but maybe we'll take one more and then we can cluster the questions.
Yeah, you are the host.
Oh, am I? Okay. Well.
Well, I'll go ahead and answer that one. And look, I think that there's a lot of possibility for both states and cities to push back. And we're seeing it. I mean, we saw Chicago and Minneapolis push back against immigration policies. The newly elected mayor in New York City, Mamdani, who's an extremely talented politician, um, has managed to sweet talk Trump into not doing certain things to New York yet. Um, I do think that state governments, in many cases, are planning and preparing and working together in a number of areas. We saw a consortium develop to protect vaccines, which is very important if you don't want your child to die. Um, and so the United States is a federal system. It is very difficult for one authoritarian center to take over everything in the United States. Um, no matter how hard it tries. And, New York City is a unique place. Mayor Mamdani is not eligible to run for president. He's an immigrant to the United States, he's a naturalized citizen. But he may very well turn out to be quite a successful mayor of New York. We'll see.
We'll see. Okay, I'll maybe ask Ayan. Ayan, I've asked you to unmute.
Yes, thank you so much, Professor. Professor, I am a recent graduate of political science from the University of Hyderabad. I followed your work quite closely, especially from your interview with Hattie Chrysler and some other people. And you mentioned your experience of working with Professor Barrington Moore. And in one of his classes, you were to read Marx and derive particular sort of concrete hypotheses from his general theories. That's quite distinct to the kind of data first, evidence first, or interpretation based sort of critical theory approaches that we do more commonly today. To what extent do you think the sort of Barrington Moore sort of pedagogy that you underwent is relevant today, or what is the state of the methodologies or approaches that are more dominant in American social science academia today? Thank you.
Well, of course, you're right that the dominant methodologies in particularly political science, which I'm primarily part of now, although I'm a sociologist as well, tend to favor statistical manipulation of individual level data and placing a lot of emphasis on causal inference above everything else, no matter how trivial the question asked. Nevertheless, United States social science is big and diverse, and there are powerful subgroups in both sociology and political science, the two disciplines that I operate in, that are in that broad Barrington Moore, actually Seymour Martin Lipset tradition, where you ask a big question about something that matters, a political transformation or policy change in the world, and you test hypotheses using rigorous data that can include systematically measured qualitative data as well as individual level quantitative data. Now, my own research uses organizational data, and that makes me unusual. I'm what's called a historical institutionalist, which means I study change over time at the intersection of state institutions and social organizations. But I particularly look for data about organized efforts that are ongoing because I think they magnify. That's why when I studied the Tea Party, we looked to see where all the Tea Parties were organized. We didn't just count people who turned out in elections or in street demonstrations. We were interested in where there were Tea Parties all over the country, and we found that they tended to be in very Republican districts and have helped to pull the Republican Party toward the uncompromising far right on the issues that grassroots Tea Partiers cared about, which is immigration and preventing cultural and generational change. So my own methods of data collection are eclectic, but I am committed to both asking big picture questions and using the most rigorous, extremely detailed data to get at the possible answers. And I don't think I'm alone. I mean, there are others who operate in these traditions, and frankly, I don't believe in being in the majority. I think majorities tend to be intellectually lazy.
Thank you, Professor. And now I'll ask Tanishka and after that Manthan to ask their questions. And if you could please switch on your camera.
Uh, Hello, is I'm audible?
Yes.
Ma'am, your work emphasized autonomous state capacity as a key variable, explaining revolutionary regime outcomes for contemporary democratic backsliding. Is the primary mechanism still erosion of that autonomy, or vis-a-vis class forces, or does institutional fit matter more? Specifically, a temporal mismatch between rigid inherited class structures and newly mobilized, radicalized political groups that exploit those structures from within. So, would you please explain?
Okay.
Well, that's why in my presentation I talked about the tendency of patrimonial rulers to try to undermine state bureaucracies, particularly those that operate with regular rules that are predictable and supposedly applied equally. Now, we know that state bureaucracies never apply their rules really totally equally. So I'm not romanticizing that. But in retrospect, it looks better to have, for example, a criminal apparatus at the federal level that tries to keep politics out of it, rather than one that, quite frankly, just takes its direction of who to punish and who to let off from a single ruler who is thinking about not public interest or even capitalists' interest, but just himself. So I am still interested in state institutions. Bringing the state back in doesn't mean you assume the state is a certain thing. It means you look at how it's organized and how the organization and reorganization of state organization of apparatuses interact with political movements and rulers. And that's exactly what I'm doing now. And I think that in the argument I'm making about Trumpism, first I show the remaking of the Republican Party as an organization, and then its enabling of a ruler who is really destroying a lot of bureaucratic state capacity in the United States. I mean, there's just no way around it. And that destruction is going to be very difficult to correct. It's not going to be easily reversed. But it has big consequences because it's not that there's nothing there in its place. What you have in place are patrimonial state organizations. And, this isn't the first time in world history we've seen patrimonial rule. I mean, the United States had patrimonial state institutions in the 19th century, and most of world history has consisted of, godlike rulers trying to and our guy is now claiming he's equal to God. I mean, he put a picture of himself out, which he's skipping the whole autocracy thing and just going for divine rule. And that's pretty old. And so what I tell my students is if you look at this as a political economy, we now have a marriage of the oldest form of rule in the world, which is patrimonial, even God-given personal rule, with these new mega billionaire, trillionaire tech guys who all believe that they individually should get all the government contracts and should be able to remake the entire world as according to their whims. It's a very unique and dangerous combination, but it's something a Weberian who pays attention to class at the same time, which is what I am, can easily analyze.
Yes. Thank you, Professor. Now I'll ask Manthan to ask their question.
Yep. Thank you, Professor. Thank you. Um, Professor, my question is, in the period where political movements contribute to institutional strength, what distinguishes successful democratic resistance, one that reinforces institutions, from forms of opposition that further destabilize them?
Well, look at what happened in Minnesota after the Trump administration sent in an armed guerrilla operation to seize people off the streets. This is shocking in the United States. I mean, it's not shocking to African Americans who lived through Jim Crow, but it's not the kind of thing that 20th century Americans have seen. Because the population of Minneapolis was already organized into neighborhood things, unions, all kinds of groups, not one big group. They were able to mobilize quickly to cooperate with one another to push back in very practical ways at the street level. At the same time, though, it mattered, and you know, the Democratic Party-led government of Minnesota is far from perfect. It has not been very good at controlling corruption on the Democratic side, and that is a vulnerability. But it did have leaders in both the city and the state that spoke up. That 7 out of 8 federal attorneys in Minneapolis refused directions to prosecute the family of one of the protesters who was killed in the streets of Minneapolis. And local police authorities are doing what they can to prosecute ICE agents who committed violence and even murder in that city. So that's a case where you see a popular mass resistance not working at the direction of authorities who believe in the rule of law, but complementing them. And you may have noticed that when I talked about how the Republican Party came about, I talked about top-down and bottom forces weakening it, hollowing it out, and creating space for, frankly, Donald Trump was not a Republican when he ran for the Republican nomination the first time. And I don't think he's a Republican now. He's a me firster. He doesn't care about the Republican Party. He doesn't care if they go down to defeat. All he cares about is himself. How could that guy take over a major political party? So that's the puzzle there, and it was top down and bottom up, and it was a hollowing out of a capacity for any kind of coalition building and sustained collective action to say no to a person who was known to be raping women. And I mean, come on, all the kinds of things that Republicans claimed they didn't believe in. But the same thing can happen on the other side. You can have a complementarity between bottom up and top down forces to reinforce inclusive and fair government. And I think we see both in the United States. It's a battle. Those of you who look at the United States must think the country has gone crazy. I don't blame you. It has. But we haven't all gone crazy. And it isn't over yet.
Yes. Yes. Thank you, Professor. I will get back to you, Justin, but I had a follow-up question because this lecture is Democracies and Beyond, and because you specialize in comparative politics, we see a very similar model happening in India. And also, as you said, like he's not really Republican, it's always me. I think here also you have like, because you're a Weberian, the charismatic authority is kind of replicating in India as well. And similar neoliberalization of institutions, joining of hands with crony capitalists and techno-capitalists, something similar and insidious happening in many parts of the world where such leaders are popping up. And you do lose trust with the institutions. And I was just wondering what the left populists could do to kind of unearth whatever is happening with the right wing. Even like, I'm sure, I mean, at the risk of an acultural analysis and maybe drawing arguments from both cases, but I feel like the Indian case is also so similar at this point in time. Yes, I just wanted to ask you that. And I'll get back to you, Jason. I'm so sorry.
Well, I understand that, although I don't know enough about the Indian case and the kind of detail I want to know to say things. So I don't want to make a fool of myself by saying things about a system that is, if anything, just as complex as the United States, and it's a federal system as well. Look, one of the things that we're talking about in the class that Daniel Ziblatt and I just taught this semester is what happens when whether they are right wing or left wing, whether kind of anti-system, one-man rule destroyers of institutions are somehow removed from office. What next? I mean, that's going to be the case in Hungary, and it has been in Poland, for example. And it's not easy to figure out how to put things right. And it's the only thing I'll say is that I'm convinced that you can't go back to what was there before. In the United States, it's not going to be a matter of just firing a bunch of people from some of these federal agencies and rehiring some of the ones from before. For one thing, a lot of the ones from before will have moved on. But there were problems in the previous system, and a lot of this kind of ethno-nationalist, if I might say so, proto-fascist authoritarianism only comes to power when democratic institutions have failed to deliver in ways that majorities, when they've been obstructed. I do think Democrats in the United States are going to have to figure out a way to not be obstructed, to not allow. There's two kinds of things they're going to have to get over. One is the idea that the Senate filibuster can prevent them from doing important things. And the other is they're going to have to change the courts. They're going to have some reforms if they get the position to do it. And they're going to have to protect voting rights. They can do that with legal means, but only if they win quite a lot of power electorally first. And when they get a chance, they better not punish the foot soldiers first. They better go after the illegalities committed by leaders first. Now, President Trump is going to pardon everybody who works for him. So there's not a question of criminal liability. But professional associations can work to disbar lawyers who bring obviously frivolous cases against others. Doctors can say, if you are in there killing children by getting rid of measles vaccines, we're going to bring you up before the professional. We don't have to all go along with all this stuff. And so there's going to have to kind of be a movement of reestablishing the public good as something people are expected to respect. And in many ways, that's going to be a kind of organizational and civil society thing, not a criminal justice thing. I think in Hungary, it's probably a little different. They've won enough political power that they can actually make the same kinds of modifications to their constitution that Orban made in the first place, and they better pick their battles. They better make sure they deliver economic prosperity and censor corruption, because they've got to hold a broad coalition together that includes many conservative elements.
I agree. I agree. Okay, Professor, just the last question. Joyson, could you, I'll ask you to unmute. Can you switch on your camera and ask the question, please?
Yeah, thank you, Sneha. Greetings, Professor. I'm from the Indian state of Manipur, where there is currently an ethnic conflict going on. And I would like to bring in a little bit of context happening here. I think democratic backsliding is also taking place in India in various forms at different levels and through different techniques. Election is one such thing, as you have also highlighted in the American context, but there are also regular instances of strong state repression towards dissent and demonstrations of the public. So how do we deal with this? I mean, in the sense that are elections the only means, elections in the sense of changing political party, the only means to attending the needs of the public and all. The context is a little bit different from the American politics, but there are also a lot of issues and different kind of instances where the state is not very accountable in a very democratic way. So I would like to know your view on this. How do we deal with this? Thank you.
Well, in a federal system, you have to enable local and state governments to refuse to go along with certain kinds of things and to work together. I think there's a big role to play by ordinary citizens in pushing institutions to work together in civil society. Here at Harvard, there's a quiet consensus that stretches even to people who disagreed with one another about, for example, Middle Eastern politics. There's plenty of disagreements about that, that it's not a good idea to have external forces dictating what goes on in the university. So I think building broad coalitions, and I don't have anything against street demonstrations, but they're just one tool. And another tool in an extreme situation is economic boycotts, rolling economic boycotts. Because we do know that these corrupt would-be authoritarian systems are vulnerable if they can't manage economic growth, and they can't because they engage in the worst kinds of cronyism, which is simply not efficient for anybody except the successful cronies. I mean, it just isn't. It's not even all that good for them because you can be a crony. If you're making a deal with Donald Trump, I mean, he's going to turn on you. One of the things that's amazing is why people keep doing it. Since it's predictable that they'll be, especially if they're females, they're going to be gone before long, but even the males. So I just think that one has to be imaginative about a full range of tactics and fit them to the occasion. But as long as elections can be had, and as long as elections can be fairly accounted, they are a very important tool. And it takes a broad coalition to win elections against these ethno-nationalist hatred stoking politicians. They are going to have hardcore supporters who are not going to abandon them. And those people do not have to be treated unfairly, but they do need to be politically defeated. So.
Thank you.